Well, I was just going to say that you did a great job of explaining it. As someone who's on the jury, it took me a while to get my head around what is it that we're selecting. And I think it's important for the community to understand we're selecting a team, a huge team. I mean, these teams had environmentalists, people who are water quality experts, people who know about birds and wildlife, as well as people who know how to put pretty pictures on maps. And we were really selecting the team, and they get a very little bit of time to come up with a vision. It's sort of an example of how do you think creatively, what might you do, but there's not a buy-in to that specific vision, and it's going to be shaped by the community in this group as it comes. When I looked at all the proposals, and we started with a stack this tall, and that was only 12, and we got it down to this tall with the 4 finalists, it was clear that they didn't have much time to deal with it all. When we looked at the 4, every single one of them had things I fell in love with and things that I went, oh, that isn't going to fit. And you may see that too. They're all the designs are on the website already. And I came into the judging thinking we should do a quilt. I want this out of this one and this out of this one and this out of this one. And in the end, maybe that will evolve over time. But we're really. So if you look at the winning design and you see something that you say, oh my God, don't do that. Like, we have to kill this thing because I don't like that. This is really, they had a short amount of time to just sort of give us a sense of their creative energy, how well they read the background materials, which included the Above the Falls plan, all the hopes and dreams, how they listened to the community that was here. It was really a judgment of that rather than buying all the little things that they have on the map. And so I think that's a really good thing for you to think about and that was one of the things we weighed really seriously in judging these teams was how much did they absorb sort of Minneapolis and the community and its hopes and dreams and plans. And I think, so I just say, take it as a first drawing, a first opportunity.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Diane, because I don't want people to think that once we announce the winning team, their concept is what we're going forward with. All of the team's concepts were literally that, concepts. And it was really to say, how do they work? How do they envision integrating their professional expertise into the community of Minneapolis? And not that any one concept or any one element is what we're going to move forward with, but it's what we thought was the team that did a lot of great work, and how they thought through the process, and then how we also envisioned them working in the community and really understanding the values of this community. So it's a great point, Diane, because I don't want people to think, okay, this team's the winning team. Okay, what was their project, and that's what's going to happen, because that's not how this is going to move forward. Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. But it's very interesting to see the juxtaposition of 2 jurisdictions and the complexities and challenges just when they focus on what would be under their more general purview. And of course, what a competition like this brings out, you have a third party come in, and they don't see the lines. They just try to create an integrated vision. And so you have the complexities of 2 jurisdictions trying to do the work, but then how do you overlay them? How do you overlap them? And of course, the immense power of a plan helps tease that out. And then one of the other things that I think is key is the plan's just not the river per se or the first 25 feet or 250 feet. It's really, I think, a key theme that came out of it, and it's a key theme, I think, that guides the city, the plan, Park and Rec, and another group that's trying to help coordinate some of the stuff. You might have heard of it, the Mississippi Riverfront Corporation, now boldly changing its name to the Mississippi Riverfront Partnership, to help coordinate some of these interjurisdictional issues. But the key theme is connection. The river design and the interactivity and the economic development will be only as good as communities connect to it.
Yep.
And so a lot of the work that we do jointly will look for those, those opportunities that go well beyond the boundary of the riverfront itself.
All very good points, and exactly what we're trying to do here. So I know that I don't want to take too much time.
Oh, no, please, if there are questions, please, do you have any questions for either Hill or for James? I have one. So, what I wanted. Well, I'm just kind of curious from a park board perspective, and this is a sort of probably a roundabout way of getting. This sounds really exciting, and I want to tap in right now. But my question is, like, if you kind of look at the park board's priorities for big scale projects and things that it's focusing on, where
does this fit in?
Where does this one fall?
You know, it's actually a very good question. I think from the park board's perspective, it's a significant priority. We obviously have other projects and other capital things that we need to work on. My view is that this project itself is setting the stage for the future of the park board and of the city. And while the immediate tomorrow it's got to be done piece, and while one project our plan is to get one project actually in the ground and done and developed within 5 years. It's really, that is one piece, but there's this long-term vision. So from the park board's perspective, this is significant in terms of priority, but in some ways, this complementary, this immediate need to do one project, but this long-term vision for do a project now, do another project down the road. So it's always going, in my view, going to be in the forefront for the next probably 20 years. And it is extremely important for the park board's perspective for a number of reasons. One is for the future of the city, and very much important, and what's driving this is for economic development in the city of Minneapolis. To create jobs, create housing, create opportunities, and redevelop this portion of the city. So it's a significant focus for the park board.
Are there other questions? Yeah, John? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering the idea of the quilt and so on.
Yeah.
So each of the design teams has been made aware of this, and it's not like they're going to come back and sue for they used my idea.
Well, here's one of the things that in this day and age that is an important element of work like this, and that's called intellectual property. What can't happen, for example, is if, and I'm going to throw something out there just that wasn't even part of any of the elements. It's just something actually we've talked about it, so it comes out of my mind. Is that if one of the design teams had a marina, for example, along the river, and that team, for example, wasn't the winning team, but the community really liked it, you can't take that particular concept of the marina from the other project, from the other design team, and plop it into this winning team, because that design team has an intellectual rights to that specific concept. But the idea of a marina, the community says that's really important, can be incorporated in what the winning team does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's an important distinction. I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of marinas, there was an interesting article in our Northeastern paper about a proposal for a marina from the sampling business on the river. Is there anything?
You know, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if you're
It was
aware.
pretty
Yeah.
interesting to read about.
We've met with the property owners there. I mean, the proposed location is an old industrial building that's on the east side of the river. Last time we talked to them, they were sort of trying to figure out the project, and I think working on the numbers to make sure it was the proposal was a marina plus a restaurant plus some other uses. Fairly ambitious. I think my impression was they're pursuing it, but they need to. Again, when it comes to a project that complicated, it takes a while to put it together. So they haven't officially applied for anything yet as a
Well,
project.
and one of the things, and again, I can speak of that from my experience in terms of being responsible for planning. Developers can come up with the greatest schemes and greatest proposals, but what's the level of substance behind that concept is really what planning staff at the city needs to flush through to say, is there really substance behind this? Do they have money to make this happen? What's the reality of that election where this is going to happen? You know, it's a great idea.
So we're tracking with it, but we haven't heard anything recently.
Are there, Kevin mentioned that there's two organizations in the city and the park, and I'm wondering how many other organizations need to be
funds.
thinking of the state and the highways.
Yep, and that's really part of what we're wrestling with as we look at creating a steering. We're actually going to be creating two fundamental committees. One is the steering committee. The steering committee is a higher level committee that really is looking what are the major kind of players in this. It's going to be the park board, the city, the county, the state, private business, neighborhood groups, and we're trying to, we're really trying to flush through that. It's very complicated, figuring out all the pieces and making sure we're really thought about that. And then there's going to be what's called this technical advisory committee, which is really dealing with the nuts and bolts of the projects, and being resources to the design team about, if they need above policy plans or elements of that, if they need some specific things about stuff. But that's the kind of the technical group that's really getting into the nuts and bolts. So those two working somewhat independent of each other, but interfacing with each other, and making sure that we, with our partners and collaborators, because obviously not everybody can be on the steering committee, but there are opportunities to use particular organizations in the community that can pull other groups together. And so we're looking at those in terms of partners and collaborators. And again, those are part of the pieces we got to figure out over this 4-month period of time.
And what, just for, say, citizens or business owners who are really interested in getting more involved, what will it look like, or what do you watch for if you want to get involved?
I would, again, our website is a great place. And what I expect is going to happen is we're trying to figure out how to make sure people have a conduit, whether it's through the steering committee or the technical advisory committee. So that's part of this partnership piece, is whether there is an organization that can represent, for example, the neighborhood groups, and that's one conduit for them to be informed of what the process is. Again, we haven't flushed through that, but for right now, I would say our website, the Riverfront Design Competition website, is probably the best place to start. The other piece is to know that it is our intent to come back to the park board with our recommendation for moving this forward by June. So clearly, I would suspect that by May, I would start really paying attention. Talking with Liz Lewinsky, staying in touch with her as a park board representative. She's done a great job, I think, because she sees how important this is to the Northeast area, making sure that she's keeping people informed. Mary DeLake, who is currently a project manager who's been leading this project, is also a good person. I think the key is probably just to pay attention to the website, and I think Liz probably for right now is your best conduit, and just know that by May we should probably look more into getting things out more aggressively, and probably at that point we'll have identified specific groups that will be significant conduits for the community.
You intimated that park board was picking a project and get it in the ground.
Well, the park board's not going to pick the project. They ultimately will make the decision, but it will be based on recommendations from this whole community engagement process.
Okay. So shovel-ready projects or projects that have been on the board for a while aren't the only projects.
Oh, absolutely. No.
And the first project could be a part of the river plan or
Absolutely.
not.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of shovel ready, there was this thing about the BF Nelson site and the Boom Island that before Gervin left and when Fisher was here, but before you came, just kind of disappeared from the discussion, and it seemed like Gervin was really pushing for it. It was going to be all this razzmatazz, and the neighborhood was saying, no, we want it natural. Where is that now?
There is some actually work that's moving forward. We have legacy funds that have to be spent actually by the end of June of this year for Boom Island and Worth. And those are actually moving forward. It's not, I can tell you, the work that we're doing on Boom Island is not just razzmatazz. A lot of it's cleanup, some trails. And part of that, too, is given what's happening with the design competition, whether it's that site or any other site that we may have had plans for along the river north of Stone Arch Bridge, my issue is why should we be moving forward significantly with those